We've had children out of their bed in the middle and destroying their communities. People are frustrated. The attack that took place in North Belfast earlier this week, but there are clearly those malign actors who want to weaponise and exploit that anger. Where most of us were sick to our stomach at an act of brutal violence, there were clearly some in this society who saw only a political opportunity to be exploited to further their own narrative and agenda, and that is utterly disgraceful. So this is a time for all of us in Northern Ireland to come together and face down this rancid racism and call it out for what it is. Well, look, first of all, and Saoirse may want to add to this, we're going in to meet the Secretary of State now, and absolutely there has been a clear attempt from Elon Musk and Tommy Robinson, people who couldn't find North Belfast on a map before this week, people who don't care about the victim, about what happened to the community, about the young people who are now embroiled in this racist thuggery. And when they move on to their next target, it will be us here in Northern Ireland who are left to pick up the pieces. So there absolutely has to be consequences for those who fan the flames of division online to further their own narrow agendas, and absolutely that is something that we intend to raise with the Secretary of State. I have seen the rumours that you refer to around protests at some political party offices. Unfortunately, this isn't new for the Alliance Party. We won't be dissuaded from standing up for a community where everyone, whether they were born here or not, whether they have chosen Northern Ireland to make it its home and to make a contribution to our society, to feel safe in their home at night. We will continue to face down racism, sectarianism and prejudice wherever it comes from, and no vile threat and no masked man is ever going to deter the Alliance Party from standing up for those values.
Jana, I think just in response to that, it's very, very clear that there have been completely and utterly nameless and faceless AI-generated graphics firing about Northern Ireland, and that has resulted in a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, and at a time whenever tensions are high and people are getting burnt out of their homes because racist mobs are baying at their doors. We have seen town centres cleared, we have seen people leaving the workplaces earlier. This is exactly what we're talking about whenever we say the government needs to get serious about tackling misinformation and disinformation. This is a targeted attempt, not just in Northern Ireland, not just in the UK, but right across our entire continent, within Europe and further afield, where people come, they cause chaos, and they move on. And this is absolutely organised. These graphics were made by people who we have no idea. They were spread like wildfire. We've seen this in the aftermath of Heaton Park. We've seen this in the aftermath of Southampton. We've seen this in the aftermath of Southport. And the government need to get real, and they need to get serious now. They can draft these pieces of legislation. They need to do that immediately. They need to give the public and us, as MPs, MLAs and any other elected rep, the confidence that they can clamp down on this wanton destruction and violence when it happens. They need to get on, and they need to do that now.
It is deeply concerning and it is utterly disgraceful. And can I just say directly to all of those members of our ethnic minority community today, those health workers, those people who work in our factories, who teach our children, who send their children to our schools, those who have had to listen to racist thugs tell them to go home, allow me to be clear as an elected representative, you are home, and you deserve to feel as safe tonight in your bed as any other member of our community. And those nurses, those healthcare workers who have been threatened and intimidated have done more for this society than those masked men put together. And so there can be no tolerance for that kind of violent discrimination and aggression. And in respect of this narrative that we often get, that this is about violence and it's about illegal immigration, first of all, those members of our ethnic minority community, for them, it doesn't matter if they work in our health service or not, doesn't matter if they were born here or not, doesn't matter their immigration status. They are being targeted solely on the basis of the colour of their skin. And that is racism, pure and simple, and we must all stand against it. And in relation to this narrative around community safety, just over a week ago, we had the sentencing of Stephen McCulloch for the murder of my constituent, Natalie McNally. It was one of the most heinous and vile and barbaric attacks that has ever been reported in Northern Ireland. A frenzied knife attack so extreme that the coroner couldn't determine the cause of death. Now I ask, where were the patriots then? Where were the protests then? Where were the politicians fanning the flames then? And again, that is more evidence that this is not a debate, this is not a conversation, this is not about policy disagreements or solutions. It is about racism, and we shouldn't fall into a trap of seeking to rationalise that or legitimise that into respectability after the fact. Well, look, of course we can have a conversation about immigration, but when we do that, we need to be very careful that we're not inflaming tensions, spreading misinformation, or fanning the flames of division. And I think too often that has characterised the immigration debate, and that has partially created this environment in which this kind of violence has been able to flourish. We don't have a system of open borders. There is not a single one of the main parties in Northern Ireland that stands for open borders. What we have is a system of controlled immigration. And I am very clear that when those controls fail, of course that should be of concern to all of us. Of course that is something that needs to be reviewed seriously by the Home Office in order to engender the public's confidence. But what does not help is politicians seeing a barbaric and brutal attack and seeing only an opportunity for political advantage. And I think that is disgraceful. So let's have the conversation. We've been having those discussions around immigration and what we can do to provide assurance. But we need to do that in a temperate way, in a humane way, and in a way that is grounded in fact and reality. Because the vast majority of people who are migrants in our society have come here legally. The vast majority are in work or in education. And in fact, our economy and our health service in particular rely on those people. So we have a duty to ensure that we have this conversation in a way that is compassionate, that's fair, and builds a safer community for everybody who lives here. All right, thank you very much.